Welcome to Smarking Down's The Last Dance. I'm your host, Brother Bob, and with me, once again, good buddy JR. How's it going, JR?
Good, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Dude, last time was so much fun. We had to keep the train moving, right? I mean, it was a good time. Last time, I figured we got a lot to talk about again. They're doing these double episodes, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it last night.
Yeah, so I got to ask, we got to start with the first question, the question that was on everybody's mind while watching this Last Dance episode. What would you do, JR, if Carmen Electra answered the door completely naked?
I would look her straight in the eyes and say, "Hi, is Dennis here?"
Sure, you'd look her straight in the eyes. Sure.
Eyes are up here.
Yeah, man. The internet was like, I'd never heard that story before. I'm like, yeah, that would be an interesting way to be greeted at Dennis's hotel room. Man, she broke the internet. Like, people were dying. It was good. It was good. Carmen Electra on Last Dance last night. But Dennis Rodman heavy episodes. Lots on the worm. Covered all the stuff about his Vegas trip, which I don't know. Today it doesn't seem that odd. I mean, what do you think? Taking some time off, in the middle of the season, like take a 3-day vacation,
I guess every team's different. Every coach, what the leniency and stuff like that. And I guess if you're a superstar, you have some leeway, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I just feel like your bigger stars in the league now. You constantly hear them having like parties or doing like things to manage their stress level during the season. So it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal these days. It's another one of those things that kind of pioneered out of that Bulls era.
Possibly. I mean, it's so easy for something like that to go on and have the team just say, for personal reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, then it was a huge deal. Like, people, like I remember it being in the report in the newspaper. I remember him, Dennis, doing the wrestling thing. People, kind of having a fit about him showing up on WCW Nitro on a Monday night that they had a game the following Tuesday. I remember that too. It was a big deal. Like, oh, he's not participating with the team as much as he should be. And I don't feel like. I mean, we see these athletes on talk shows and stuff all the time now. We've seen Shaq appear on like wrestling shows and stuff. I don't think. I mean, Robert Gronkowski just hosted WrestleMania just before like signing a new contract in Tampa Bay. So I feel like the stigma behind these guys doing stuff outside of the sport has kind of changed a lot since the 90s.
Oh yeah, definitely. And as long as you get your job done on the field or on the court or whatever, if you're performing, I mean, why not?
Exactly. And Dennis, I mean, oh man, the story about practice when he came back from Vegas.
Practice?
Oh, we talking about practice. Not a game, but practice. But no, like Michael told that story, and I knew what it was going to be. Like, he's talking about the drill they were running, where the guy in the back has to then run to the front, and everybody has to keep pace. And as he's going to it, I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna say Dennis like freaking like took off or something. Like, he's gonna say everybody took it slow, and then I'm like, I'm waiting for it, and sure enough, he did, and I was dying, I was rolling. Jordan's looking at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, dude, like if you've run those drills, you totally get that, and that's hilarious. And Michael's saying it took him like 3 laps to catch up. That was
4 laps to catch up.
That's a funny story, and it's because like my grandpa was a huge Dennis Rodman fan. He was like, we watched the Bulls throughout the entire championship runs, but my grandma was a big Scottie Pippen and BJ Armstrong fan. My mom loves Scottie and Michael.
Buddy, BJ.
Yeah,
It's baby face, man.
yeah,
He has that baby
exactly,
face.
exactly. But my grandpa started watching like regularly when they signed Dennis. Like beforehand, the first three championships, we'd all be in the family room watching, basketball, and he'd be like reading his newspaper or whatever. But like once they signed Dennis, like he was invested in the games. He thought Dennis was like just something about how eccentric Dennis was and how hard he played. And he was always like, look at him, look at him, just like hustling. Look at him hustling, man. Like, that guy's got a lot of heart, and he loved Dennis Rodman. And so I knew when Michael was like telling that story, I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be the end of it. Dennis is that guy. So, we got a lot of Piston stuff too, though, right? I mean, we got to hear all about the Jordan rules.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They had to reignite all the hatred for the Pistons.
yeah. I liked James Worthy. James Worthy had another good quote. I mean, this is his second show where he really had one of the best quotes, where he mentioned that the Pistons had the Jordan rules just for Michael. I don't know how he got out alive, and I'm like, fair. And hearing that from one of the 50 greatest players in the NBA, multi-time All-Star, Hall of Famer, hearing him like say that and not being part of those Bulls teams, it really lends credence, because I remember being in Michigan when they were playing the Pistons, and people were like, "Oh, Jordan's just a crybaby," and we got a lot of that kind of comments from Piston fans, and hearing other people be like, "Yeah, dude, that was ridiculous," is nice to hear.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you watched the Bulls from a real young age, right?
Yes. I wasn't. I really didn't get into basketball till I don't know, about like fifth or sixth grade, when I was playing in my grammar school and stuff. But my dad's a big sports fanatic, so the games are always on. But at the time, I'd rather play with Transformers and ride my bike outside and stuff.
Yeah.
So love didn't really grow till I want to say the late '80s. Yeah,
Yep.
when I was in high school, and
Gotcha.
I loved to play it, and watching Michael Jordan um, made me go outside and try and shoot and like mimic the moves. And I always signed up for team sports in high school because I knew there'd be basketball, and I
Mm-hmm.
always looked forward to that. But I'm not very good.
Yeah.
I try. I'm a hustle guy, but I have the vert of an elephant.
Hey, we can't be all stars, right? It's very few make it to that level. But you got to watch like the early struggles against Detroit.
Yeah,
I started watching the first championship year. I started watching during the regular season during their first championship year. So when they came up against Detroit in the playoffs, after I watched a handful of regular season games, and I watched the first round of the playoffs, I watched them get up to Detroit. When they got to Detroit, man, that was a shock to me. Like, and I think I was like 10 years. Yeah, I was like 10 years old at the time, and watching them play Detroit and take those kind of hits, like, it was jarring. I remember like watching with the family, like yelling at the TV, like my grandma yelling at the TV, like you can't do that, he's screaming at the TV. So I just remember how shocking that was in comparison to the rest of the games that the Bulls had played at the time, and just how different that Piston team played the game of basketball.
yeah, it was very, very physical. They took some punishment for sure.
Yeah. And now you and I met Dennis Rodman here in Grand Rapids. It was Grand Rapids Drive game. He was there doing autographs, and you came in rocking the Chicago Bulls Dennis Rodman jersey. I was wearing the shirt over here, the NWO WCW Bash at the Beach shirt. So I think he got a kick out of that, and we'll put a picture up here on the screen, and there we are. So yeah, that was fun. That was a cool experience to get to meet Dennis.
I don't know if he understood us, but he wasn't all there that night. So
Yeah, Dennis has had his struggles with substances and things, and I mean, from what I've read recently, he's clean again and sober, and I'm happy to hear that. That's one of the things in sports that you always hate to hear. There's so many of these guys who you really put themselves through everything and really give their all, and then need to seek either pain killing or seek just like mental repair through like drugs and alcohol, and that's super unfortunate. You hear a lot of it in the wrestling as well, so it's good to hear anytime that when Dennis does clean up, because want to see these guys who we got so much enjoyment from watching doing well.
yeah, for sure.
So
I do respect his game. I love his hustle, and I do think he means well, but he's just a different character. That's all.
yeah, he's one of those guys. He's got a big heart, and it's interesting. A guy you see so often, people focus all of their focus on scoring. Um, from every level. Like when you're a kid and you're playing on the playground, you have the kids on the you're playing with who want to freaking shoot the ball every time they touch it. You have you have that kid, and in high school you have the kid who like the coaches have to constantly tell you don't shoot the ball every time you touch it. Pass it. You gotta learn to be a team player. You have that going on. For Dennis Rodman to be the guy who is more interested in playing defense and rebounding the basketball than he is scoring baskets is really unique. There weren't a whole lot of guys that really focused on something like that. I think maybe one of the only ones that come to mind besides Dennis is Dikembe Mutombo, as far as focusing on something other than the scoring end.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, he was a scorer in Detroit. I mean, he was like 10-point per game average guy in Detroit. So I mean, he really his early career he scored more baskets, but I think he did the things the Bulls needed him to do during his time in Chicago. I mean, we did see some games where he scored some pretty big shots in the finals too, against Seattle and against the Jazz, where he hit some big buckets. So that was Dennis's game though.
What's crazy too is like back then with the tattoos and the colored hair and the piercings, that was rebellious to everyone. Like, oh my gosh, look at that, he's a freak.
Yep.
And now it's kind of like the norm.
Yeah.
With tattoos, piercings, and people doing. Look at Birdman, and everyone's got almost everyone. It seems like has a tattoo is like industry standard.
Yep. And I mean, in Dennis, he was he was the first to do that, and then Allen Iverson came in the league, and even though Dennis had been doing that for a long time and been a 5-time NBA champion, you still had Iverson come in the league and get some of the same criticism over the way he looked. He had his hair in braids and a do-rag on, and he had tattoos, and you had some of the same people out there saying he's a thug and things of that nature.
Who cares as long as they perform?
Yep, exactly.
I went to art school, so nothing is shocking to me. I've seen it all.
Yep.
Everyone was Dennis Rodman around me. All different kinds. It's just nuts.
Yeah, and I mean, and then that's people should be tolerant of others and the things that it's their body. They should be able to do what they want, and it shouldn't be any concern of anyone else's. So it's nice to see that we've progressed so much since that time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there were some things about the baggy clothing.
Yep.
Went too far.
Yep.
So
that was the criticism of Michaels. I mean, there were the criticism of Michael with the baggy shorts. That like
we went to like the knee, and then the early 2000s it started going past the knee, like to the shin level, and that's where they stepped in and say, "Okay, enough."
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
that's just what the style was at the time. Was
Yep.
everyone was baggy.
Yeah.
Everything was baggy.
Well, I mean, you wanna be comfortable. I mean, on the court, as well. So I mean, there's that, and now the guys. The interesting thing is, you went from the tight short shorts and the real tight fit jerseys, all right, and everything started getting baggy, and then all of a sudden, guys are wearing like compression gear underneath the baggy stuff, and it's like, wait, what? Okay. It's really interesting that it kind of took that turn. So now they're back to having tight fitting attire, but underneath the baggy stuff.
Well, that's also the shorts are now higher. I don't know if you noticed that. They're not. Some prefer like knee level or below the knee, but if
Mm.
you look at like especially the younger cats that are coming in, their shorts are above the knee.
Yeah.
How they like they used to be.
Yep. Well, I mean,
Look at the college teams too.
mm,
The cut and the height is shorter,
mm-hmm.
but they still rock the compression underneath.
Yep. So, and yeah, I mean, Jordan kind of, I mean, his weren't below the knee either. I mean, during that era, it was still above the knee as well. So, I mean, it's kind of gone back to that '90s era. I mean, it's not back to the '80s. It's not like the super super short shorts, but it's definitely shorter than what they had been throughout the early 2000s. Yeah.
They're not at Stockton level.
No. So we got Detroit. We got a lot of information on them in this episode. A lot of talk about them walking off the floor. What did you think about what Isaiah said in context to how Detroit was treated by Boston? Do you think there's anything? Do you think there's anything there where, looking back, you can say, okay, I can see why they did that. Something similar was done to them, or do you just think that Horace Grant was
I
right
don't
and they were
think
bitches?
they thought back to that at all. I think they were in the heat of the moment of just being defeated and upset, and Lambeer leading that, and I think it was just fuck these guys.
Yeah,
Let's walk off.
I
That's how I see it.
I agree. I have never heard Isaiah, and he's been asked numerous times. I have never heard him mention what Boston did until now. So it makes me feel like
Bad Boys 30 for 30.
yeah, I watched that.
I think they might have mentioned it in there. I'm
Did they?
not. I
Okay.
could be mistaken, but
I just know like most of the stuff like throughout the years, like he's had magazine interviews. They talked to him around the Olympics when he didn't end up on the dream team, and there was a lot of rumors going around that Michael like said he wouldn't play without them and things of that nature. So um, there were interviews then, and he didn't ever bring up this Boston Celtics situation. So it just feels like maybe this is him taking time to think about an excuse of why they should do it. Uh, Interestingly, before we started recording today, I caught John Saley on SportsCenter, and he mentioned that he didn't think it was Isaiah's idea to do so. He put it all on Bill Lambier, and
yeah,
I'm like, all right, that's fair. I would think that would who the instigator would be. Bill Lambier seemed to be that guy.
I think there was footage of it. Well, I don't know. I mean, unless you're a lip reader, but they showed a clip of Lambeer leaning down to Isaiah on the bench, and
Mm-hmm.
then they started to walk off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it definitely seems like that with the situation. But yeah, and then Saley mentioned something else, which I think is it's relevant. I mean, I can't argue with the fact that he's like, hey, Detroit made Michael and Chicago better. They forced them to be tougher. And he's like, hell, they forced me to be tougher. They made me do shit that I didn't want to do. So, and I can agree with that. I think the play against Detroit and what they went through, I think that's what got them through the later matches against the Knicks. I think it's what helped them when they struggled against other teams and were down in like the fourth quarter and made these big comebacks and stuff. I think it very much could be because of the fact that they went through those Detroit series and they had overcome and they knew they could do that now.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Jordan rules. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, there somebody pointed out, and I thought this was funny that somebody posted a GIF, and they're like, NBA referee just calmly drags Scottie Pippen off the court, and it's footage of Scottie getting hit in the head while going up for a shot and getting knocked to the floor, and the ball going back to Michael. Michael's got the ball, and he's still and the game's still going on. Scottie's laying like near the baseline on the ground, and the referee just kind of walks over, grabs him, and just kind of slowly drags him off the floor, just sliding him over to the baseline. And they're like nowadays, like they would have stopped play if the guy doesn't get up. Here they just dragged him off the floor. And I'm like, that's how those Piston games went, man. Like, they let a lot go. I don't believe for a minute that if a team played that way against LeBron today, that they would get away with any of the stuff Detroit got away with.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, and
Ejections,
yeah,
suspensions.
yep.
Yes.
I mean, I don't even think a team could threaten to do that to LeBron and then not do it without getting called for those fouls. I think if they were like, "Hey, we're gonna implement LeBron rules in an interview before the game," and then went out there, anytime they went close to him, a foul will be called. I don't think the referees would even allow it to get started at this point. It's just not. The game has become a lot softer than it was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Yep.
But don't forget the New York Knicks. They also adopted a similar style.
Sure did.
Physical play. But
And I
they
think
were beating on the Bulls as well.
Yep, and I think that's what like when they started doing that the first year they, because the Bulls played them in the playoffs one year, and I want to say it was their second championship year they played in the playoffs, and hadn't really implemented that kind of play, that much rougher style. But I think it was their third championship season that the Knicks started doing that, and the Bulls struggled with it early on, but I think they kind of
Beating on them in the '92 season too, I think.
okay. Well, I just know that the first few games the Bulls weren't handling it great, but I think they kind of looked back on that Detroit series and got strength from that. At which point then Scottie and Michael started dunking on Patrick, and the series turned. So, but yeah, lot of tougher play in the '90s than today.
For sure.
Yeah. So,
So the episodes last night.
yeah.
What else did you take? Did you take away from it?
Well, I mean, I did not realize the closeness between Phil Jackson and Dennis. I didn't realize they were. I knew Michael and Phil were really close, but I didn't know that that Dennis and Phil Jackson had such a bond. And I really enjoyed hearing the Native American spiritualism stuff from Phil Jackson. I have read his books. I knew that was something that he believes in and that he implemented into their practices and things. But it was really nice to hear him talk about it in this documentary. Being somebody who has Native American blood, and my grandpa was heavily involved in the Native American community. So, yeah, my grandfather's side, it's super little. It's not like we couldn't be like part of a tribe or anything.
College.
It's like Elizabeth Warren level of it's just down there. But yeah, no, but Grandpa was super involved. Like he made walking sticks. He was given the name Spirit Eagle. He attended the Indian powwows and sold goods at those. He met with some different tribal leaders locally. So there's a lot of that stuff I had growing up.
What's your name?
I don't have one.
Do the verse of Dave Chappelle's.
Yeah.
White.
But yeah, so anyway, it was nice to hear that from Phil. I enjoyed hearing him talking about that. I was unaware of the whole Las Vegas hangover situation where they had to go like track down Dennis.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you think?
I heard something about it, but not in that detail.
Yeah, I knew he went to Vegas because I remember that we reported he went to Vegas during the season, but I had no idea Michael had to go track him down. And I mean that proves how important Dennis was to that team. I mean they didn't suspend him. They didn't release him. Michael got in a plane and went and got him. He was an important part to that team.
Uh,
So
that's
yeah,
a true leader right there.
sure is, man. And then
But I would,
and then to bring him back instead of staying with Carmen Electra, I mean, it's willpower.
I mean, he could have hit the craps. He could have hit the craps tables too. I mean, killed two birds with one stone.
Yeah, freaking
Get Dennis
played
hands.
nine holes. Got some good golf courses down in Vegas. But yeah, no. So I really enjoyed this episode. I think the one thing they kind of left out, which I wish they would have at least touched on briefly, with with Dennis's stints into professional wrestling. Specifically, the fact that
There's still time.
yeah, I mean, we'll see where it goes. It's just, I mean, it was so Dennis centric, the episode, that I thought they might be covered, but I don't know. I find it so fascinating that you had an NBA Finals where you have two guys guarding each other and knocking each other to the ground and playing so tough and just like getting called for like technical fouls on each other, and then like a month later they're like wrestling each other with like Hulk Hogan and Diamond Dallas Page and like WCW. And it's like, how did we get, like, how was it even possible to take, the two guys who like battled so hard for a championship and then put them in a ring together and do a choreographed predetermined fight? It's so strange to me how we got from point A to point B there.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
human,
I guess.
It shows how hot both the NBA and pro wrestling was at the time, because like I don't see how
Wrestling was hot back then. I don't remember it being hot.
dude the 90s was like you had WCW on for like 2 or 3 hours on Monday night, and then on another channel you had WWF on for 2 or 3 hours on that Monday night, and then they both had like a second show. They had WCW had Thunder, and WWF had SmackDown. See, they both were running like, you had two companies running 4 to 5 hours worth of TV live every week, and then they had like tape stuff they did on the weekends. It was crazy popular. The whole NWO thing started then. Hulk Hogan with the bad guy. Yeah, so
Yeah, I never really got in. Well, I take that back. I used to be in when I was really young.
mm-hmm.
I'm talking back in the junkyard dog days.
Yep.
Really, but other than that, I mean, we were just kept beating on each other when we were little kids, trying to do those moves. I got the figure 4 put on me once. That hurt so bad. But yeah.
Yeah, today, man, like the stuff done today, like it's so different than then. Like these guys now wrestling are like your NBA players. And that's the other fun thing, is like you're still hearing, and this is why Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and it's not LeBron and it's not Kobe, because you still got, like, even like on wrestling, you'll have a guy do some crazy like jump off the top rope and do like a 360 in the air and land on somebody, and the commentator will be like, "Oh my God, it was like Michael Jordan's out here," and I'm like, "Well, there you go. You never hear it's like Kobe Bryant's out here. It's the go-to is always Jordan." So, but yeah,
one thing about this series that I'm loving is the soundtrack.
oh my God,
The soundtrack and how it fits with what's being shown on screen right there is just amazing.
absolutely. Yeah, I tweeted out during the first episode. I'm like, I don't know what I want ESPN to release more, the documentary as a DVD or just the soundtrack. Because if all these songs were available on like one compilation, I'd totally pick that up. There's a lot of good music there.
Oh yeah,
Yep. And I mean, and it really brings back the feel of the time too, because there's it's really based in that era. And so it really brings you back. One of the interesting things, so, and I don't know if this is just me and how I feel when I watch, the Bulls play, but the documentary still gives me those feelings I had when I was a kid and would put in like the VHS tapes of like their championships and stuff. I still get that excited feeling. I still pop at like fast break dunks, even though I seen them before. It still excites me, and I don't know if there's a lot of things that still that I've watched numerous times that still give me that kind of enjoyment and that kind of excitement.
no, I agree. The footage that a lot of it we've seen so far. I mean, there is some other footage that we haven't, but I know it's more based for the people that haven't seen any of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind watching it over again.
Yep.
It's great,
Yeah.
and I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that electric feeling from it, the nostalgia. So I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Keep
It makes
keep
me it makes me want to play, man. It makes me want to go out and play.
I'm like that on my Bulls fan pages. They keep posting Derrick Rose highlights, and some people are sick of it. But I'll sit there and watch them over again because they're amazing at what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, I did pick up that DVD, the Bulls box set that had the game against the Celtics that you were at, I believe. Yes.
For time thriller.
Yep. But well, looking on there, I noticed. I mentioned this to you earlier before we went on that the championship DVD box set is going for like $250 on Amazon right now, and I'm just shocked. Like this is really.
How much is the retail?
I think I think I maybe bought mine new at like probably 50 maybe, like when it first released. And
Wow.
then like on there they have the Detroit Pistons and the Philadelphia 76ers box sets, and those are going for like $25. So like the difference is just amazing. The renewed interest in the 90s Bulls
It's
from this documentary.
it's going to continue, and I think it's going to affect the. Like I said last episode, that it's going to affect shoe sales, which was going to hurt me since I'm a sneakerhead.
Well,
There's still a few pairs that I'm looking for.
well, my hope
Higher.
my hope is that they will. So they've done so many awesome colorways and really cool new things, and I appreciate that. Being a fan of the color black and yellow, and I love my black and yellow ones. I really want to get the 12s when they release in that black and yellow colorway in July. But I'm hoping that with the re-interest in the 90s Bull specific, we might get those iconic shoes in their original colorways re-released.
I am waiting for the Scottie Pippins, the Pippin 2s. I don't know if you remember that pair where it's an all white and it has like this jewel, almost like it looks like an upside down swoosh on the side of it.
Yeah.
Black sole,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a tiny little red swoosh on the side.
What were they the
metal? It was based off of some classic car.
Were they the ones that said Pip on the back, or were those the threes?
I think it said Pippin on the back.
Yeah. Okay. I think I may have had those ones back in the day. But yeah.
But it was not the first one. I think it's the Pip. That one's the Pippin 2.
Okay.
But I'm just waiting. I think they retro those in 2006, and I never got a pair, and I'm kicking myself.
Well, they retroed the Rodman Nikes, but I don't believe they had the Rodman logo on the back of them. I think they just had a Nike swoosh. I think.
What?
Yeah. Because I remember looking at them. I'm like, okay, those are the Rodmans. I'm like, all right. And so I was looking at them, and then they didn't have that Rodman worm logo on the back, and I was like, well, I'm not buying them then. And I don't know if since then, I mean, it's possible since then they've re-released them again, because this was I don't know, probably 2010 or so. But so it's been 10 years, they could have released them again. But I would like to see those come out again too. I'd pop on a pair of those. I just like I said in the last episode, I have so many of the original releases that are to the point where the glue is like coming loose and things, and I don't want to wear them every day. I don't want them to fall apart. I want to have those, and I at the same time, I want to be able to wear that. I want to be able to rock, the that style shoe, and so we need to get some re-releases in those original colorways for me to make some replacements. And maybe they'll bump up the numbers they're making as well if they start seeing more interest. So, but yeah, no, I mean, we need to see some more of this stuff out. I think it would be nice if the NBA would release the box set again of the DVDs on Blu-ray, and improve the video quality as much as possible, and release some more games with it, because those box sets had like, I
It
want to
had a few
say, what, 12 games total, something like that.
but I know there's games on there.
Yeah,
But
but I
I
think that I
can't
think
wait till all the DVDs sell out.
mhm.
Then they're gonna come out with the Blu-rays 4K.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the DVDs are sold out. Like, that's why they're going for so much. They're no longer produced. So like it's all secondhand sales.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. So I mean, I think now would be the time to re-release some of this stuff. I would love a box set of simply, and I drop $50 per season. So they could get me for $300. For all the seasons, and but I'd like a box set specifically that had each, like, the entire playoff run. Like, give me, or at least give me, like, the key games through the playoff run. The ones where the Bulls won and there were key games. But I'd love to have just every game through the playoffs, so I could watch every game of the 91 playoffs, every game of the 92 playoffs. That would be amazing, and I would be willing to drop $50 per season on that if they released it. I think that'd be a heck of a deal. I just think it comes down to the NBA needing to realize that there is a lot of money available still in that nostalgia, and there
Yeah.
isn't a good way to get it. And that's the other thing that's crazy to me. So, you not being a wrestling fan, I'll kind of break it down to you a little bit. WWE came out with something called the WWE Network. It is Netflix for WWE wrestling, and WWE bought up other companies, ECW, WCW. They got tape libraries from Deep South Wrestling, a bunch of other wrestling companies. So for $9.99 a month, you can have their app just like Netflix. I can go on and I can watch every single episode of WWE Raw. It's like, what are they, 30 years they've been doing that? I can watch every single episode a week, of that. I can watch every episode of WCW Nitro. I can watch every pay-per-view they do, all at that price of $10 a month. It's all available. Following suit, New Japan and Ring of Honor and a lot of these other wrestling companies have followed suit and have put their library available for you to pay $10 a month and have access to that library. I wish the NBA would allow individual teams to do that. Because I don't need access to every NBA game. I mean, there's so many games. I mean, you're talking about teams with an 82 game season, and you have 30 some teams in the league. That's a whole lot of content, and hosting that would be uber expensive. But if teams were allowed to host that library, NBA get a percentage, team get a percentage. I'd spend $10 a month to have access to, like, all the Bulls documentaries, every Chicago Bulls game, like a bunch of, like, added interviews and stuff. Maybe they did stuff that they've done charity events or whatever, like just all this extra content on there. I'd pay $10 a month to have access to that, because I would watch a lot of that stuff again. I just find it crazy that, like, the NBA, NFL as well, that you have these large sports leagues that have so much available content that they're not monetizing.
Yeah, I think that's how they get you those. Just I'd rather have it just be you could purchase per game or just like a package of games that you can select for a price.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd be good with that too. I just think that the way you reach more people, like from a business perspective, to get them all to buy it is if everything's available. So like if you wanted to watch classic Derrick Rose games and I wanted to watch classic Jordan games, but they only put 2 classic Derrick Rose games and they put like a dozen classic Jordan games on there, you're only gonna pick up. You're only gonna pay for those 2 Derrick Rose games. But now, if they put all of that stuff on the network, then they're getting people who want those 2 Derrick Rose games to pay for it, plus the people who want the Jordan games to pay for it, and then they're able to put more stuff on there, plus the production of discs and distribution to retail. We're kind of moving to the digital age at this point. I think there's all that stuff comes into effect, but it'd be cheaper for them in the long run to just host it on like a server. But I mean, yeah, I think they got to do something at some point, and this kind of proves it. Like ESPN's doing fantastic numbers on this. They're hitting record numbers for TV ratings. Last week they did anyway. I haven't seen any numbers from this week, but yeah, I mean, there's interest, and not making money from it seems like a poor decision on the NBA's part.
That's all everyone's talking about right now is The Last Dance.
Mm-hmm.
And all you see are old clips being posted on Facebook. ES Sports Center and News, they talk about it, and it's great because it's just more content, more bulls.
Well,
So
ESPN was ingenious. Like ESPN, so smart on their part to release this now. I don't know if this was planned to come out at this time. I'm assuming that this
they moved
series,
it up.
yeah, I'm assuming it was supposed to come out after the playoffs. Like that would be my assumption.
Release in June, and
Yeah.
then people, I guess, were tweeting and demanding that they release it early because of the pandemic.
Well, I mean, and it's super smart too because this gives them something to talk about on SportsCenter because there aren't any other sports going on. They're talking about COVID-19 stuff just like CNN and MSNBC and Fox, and I'm like, people aren't going to tune into SportsCenter to find out about like this pandemic we're in. They want to tune in to hear about sports. So this allows them to bring on, former players to talk about it. It allows them to bring on current players to give their perspective on it. It allows them to bring on former commentators to talk about it. It gives them a wealth of more content for their programming, which they wouldn't have had if they weren't doing this. So worked out really, really well for ESPN.
Yeah, I'm glad too. And what better escape than this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're biased, we're Bulls fans, but just for people into sports at all, I mean, it's an intriguing story. It's great, and I'm loving it. I can't wait till next Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my kid, Jordan, not the player Jordan, he is just so immersed into it that we, put in the DVDs and we watched a couple full games now, and he wanted to see more, and it's really piqued his interest into it. And I mean, before that, I mean, he's named after Michael Jordan, and like his interest level was like if we were at the restaurant and a sports bar or whatever, and they had a clip of Jordan on, he'd mark out and he'd pop for it, but like he didn't really care to watch anything, like long term. Like if we'd go to the store and there'd be like a Haynes display, or we'd see like Space Jam, he'd be like, Michael Jordan. But like that was like the extent of his interest. And now it's like, I want to watch this. I want to learn more. This is amazing. Like he's just hooked, and that makes me super happy to be able to share that with him. I think it's a huge bonus during this time of social distancing and everything, that there's something else we can kind of share and bond over. So I've been enjoying that.
I'm gonna offer it to my son, Jace,
Mm-hmm.
see if he wants to watch it. But
I mean, does he enjoy documentaries and things? I mean,
he did watch the Linsanity, the Jeremy Lin story,
mm-hmm.
and he liked it. He saw the Bears documentary. and liked it. And he also rewatched. I had the Blu-ray of the Cubs World Series, and he
Mm-hmm.
saw that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I'll offer to him. I mean, I could see him taking a couple of hours, but I would have to do this in. I don't know if he would sit through all 10 of these, but
Yeah.
maybe, who knows?
I
Maybe
don't
he
know.
gets intrigued and
I
gets
don't.
caught up in it and wants to binge it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd binge all all of them in a row either. I'm enjoying. I think the 2 hour block is fantastic, and
Yeah.
it moves very well. I'm not bored, and it's interesting for me.
Wait,
With that,
sorry to interrupt. Are you sick of seeing Chris Paul's face?
I
I
I
started
I
getting annoyed because I kept seeing Chris Paul.
I would say yes,
I don't care if
but
he's a jump man.
but
Much
if
Chris Paul for me. I'm like,
but less of Paul's face would probably mean less of Carlton Banks' face because that commercial's awesome. I was like, it's Carlton. So that I mean, I every time he's on there, I'm like, it's the Carlton commercial. So I mean, I can't be too mad about the Chris Paul face because they got Carlton in this commercial. Um, but no, I found that the 2 hour block. Goes really smooth. And I've seen other people who I'm friends with who are also wrestling fans like I am. And like I mentioned, they in the 90s they had 2 hour blocks of programming. And in recent years, WWE's programming, their 2 hour shows and 3 hour shows have at times felt like a chore. They get to a point where you're like, it's dragging, it's not moving fast enough. There are movies that I've seen that have been 2 hours where I'm like, this really needed to be like an hour and a half. They could have cut the third act completely because this movie is too long. There've been moments like that. So as somebody who's experienced that with other forms of media, to have watched two nights now of 2 hour programming on the Bulls and not have any moments of like, all right, is this over yet? Is amazing. And to even get to the moment where when it is over, to be like, holy shit, this has been 2 hours. Like, had this has been 2 hours? Like, holy crap! Like, what happened? And people, other wrestling fans have been tweeting that too. A lot of people I've seen who complained about WWE's programming being too long, are sitting here like, wow, that 2 hours flew by. So ESPN's done a really, really good job in editing and the production end of that to keep people interested. And I think that is why they aren't really doing individual episodes. We mentioned that kind of last week where they said, okay, this episode is about, and then they kind of like this is about Scottie Pippen, and then they kind of just went right back to Michael Jordan during it. I think the reason they did it that way is because if you give people 30 minutes of something and then 30 minutes of something else, even though it's still all about the Bulls, it keeps the attention span running. And the way they segment into each of those, the way they move into each of those segments is really well done as well. And I think that's why it moves so smoothly. I think it's why it keeps focused. I think they did the same thing this week. It was super Dennis. It was Dennis Rodman heavy. Then we talked about the Pistons. Then we talked about Phil Jackson and Dennis Rodman, and then it kind of went back into Dennis Rodman a little bit at the end. And I'm like, all right, I like the change of topic, and then kind of bringing it back at the end. Really seems to work for this series and keeping it fresh throughout.
mm-hmm.
So I give mad props to ESPN for their production.
Yeah.
Yep. So next week we got the Dream Team. You excited for that one?
Yes.
Man, the Dream Team, like that was crazy. We were at a time when you couldn't just find anything online or on demand anything anytime you wanted to. You were at a time when you kind of had to watch stuff live, or you had to like kind of VCR tape it or whatever. I remember watching some of those Olympic games at like midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember like trying to find this stuff to watch because it wasn't readily available. I also remember picking up a VHS tape from Blockbuster Video that had with like a documentary on the Dream Team in the Olympics, and it had all this really cool behind the scene footage. And it was way better done than the one the NBA did, because the NBA released their own Dream Team video, and that video was like all highlights of the players who were on the Dream Team while they were in the NBA. It had no actual Olympic footage or anything. So yeah, no, I remember having that DVD and just or that VHS tape actually, and just loving it. So yeah, I'm excited for next week's.
I was all about the McDonald's like collector cards and the tumblers.
Yes, I have the full set of the Dream Team cups. I'll break out the Scotty and Michael here for our next show and have them up here on the set. But I have the full set. I got the mail away Clyde Drexler that they released because he didn't come in the thing. I think I might be Christian Laettner and Clyde Drexler with the mail away. I'm not sure, but I have the whole set.
Laettner didn't get his own cup.
Yeah, they each got their own cup, but I think they were mail away cups.
Okay.
Yeah, because those two were added late to the roster, if you remember.
Lucky duck, man.
Yeah, could you imagine had they put Shaq on the team instead of Laettner?
Oh my God.
Ah, man, break backwards in the Olympics.
That'd be all I could see from that. There'd still be blowouts, like from 50-point blowouts still, except you'd throw in some shattered backboards.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because I mean, he was doing like his first season in the NBA. There were a bunch of those, so yeah, no, that would have been crazy. So we could talk a whole lot about that on the next show. But I don't know. Is there anything else you wanna cover here? We're talking Detroit and Dennis. Anything else?
No. I guess my favorite quote would be Horace Grant. Straight up bitches.
Straight up bitches. Absolutely.
I'm making a T-shirt out of it.
You gotta figure a way to incorporate the goggles into that. Yeah, if you can like have like straight up bitches like go around the lenses of the goggles or something, like yeah, that would be dope. I'd be all about that shirt.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, that would be cool as hell. So yeah, for those who don't know, JR is a t-shirt designer. He does t-shirt design, and you work with a lot of the college teams and stuff as well, right? You do a lot of college t-shirt designs.
Yep.
So
it's sportswear, but now that we have Fanatics, I check a lot of the Fanatics artwork. So there's a lot of pro and college in there.
Very cool. Very cool. So, all right, man. Well, I think that covers it for this week anyway, and we'll be back next week with the Dream Team. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, what's that?
So thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it was great to have you. But we'll continue this, man. We're gonna do the whole series, so you'll be here every week. So everybody watching, thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, please hit the subscribe button. Like the video, and slam dunk on that bell icon. All that stuff will keep you updated on future releases. Helps us out a bunch, and we'll see you on the next show. Peace out, everyone.
Peace.